Okay, yeah, so there's this virus, so you're not going to work today. I don't know. I mean, probably just for like 2 weeks. It should be fine. No, that doesn't mean that we're going over to Mima's and Pop Pop's house. We're not doing that. No. You know how they had the sniffles last week? Well, the governor is being really nice, and they're moving him to a senior care facility. Yeah, they should be fine. They should be absolutely fine. I know, but it's only for 2 weeks. It's just 2 weeks. You see, there's this curve, and we got to flatten it, okay? It's just 2 weeks. So just bear with me, okay? No, don't call it that. I know it's from China, but you don't need to call it that. And no more of this kung flu stuff either. No. Come on, you're better than that. Seriously, it's just 2 weeks, okay? It's going to be fine. It's just 2 weeks, no work, no school, no church, no funerals, no weddings, no vacations. No, you can't go over to Tommy's house. Have you even been listening to me? Come on. Well, I don't know. I mean, there's this Tiger King thing. You could watch that. Sounds like fun. You know, there's a Lion King and there's a Tiger King. It should be very similar. It's just, all right, I don't want to hear it anymore. Don't talk to me about your rights. Don't talk to me about the Constitution. Don't talk to me about any of that stuff. I just don't want to hear it. Well, the government will give you money. The government will. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. You know what? Go to your room. Go to your room. Go. Binge watch YouTube. Okay, I don't know. Maybe every episode of the Freedom Hub. It's a great day to be an American. Why? Because of patriots like you. Patriots like you who go out of their way to find conservative voices like theirs. Or maybe you're not conservative and you just want to hear a little bit of logic and reason instead of the mainstream media that's out there. So thank you for tuning into the Freedom Hub. Now, in order to hear more voices like this and in order to help my channel, really all you got to do is like the video, subscribe to the video, and please, ring that bell over there. Get those notifications and let freedom ring throughout the land. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into the Freedom Hub. Today, we are going to take a look at something that we covered on the long lost episode 1, and it's lockdowns. We're going to talk about the lockdowns, something that's been plaguing this country for a little bit longer than the 2 weeks to flatten the curve that we were originally told about. So, we originally did this episode, recorded it at the end of December. So, some of this information might be a little bit outdated, but I'm going to try to see, if anything has come out since then and see if we can get some updates, okay? Oh, yeah. Enjoying myself a little bit of Buffalo Trace and ginger tonight. Make sure that you take a look at our whiskey reviews on the website as well as on the channel. You can watch the whole review for Buffalo Trace. It's wonderful. I drink it even when I'm not singing its praises for the internet. So the first person that I want to talk about is Rick Savage. Now, Rick Savage was the owner of the Sunday River Brewing Company up in Maine. Now, he had been fined. He decided that he was going to stay open. He was going to stay open. He had got well past the 2 weeks to flatten the curve. He gave it to the end of April. And then he was just like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this to my employees, and my business is suffering, and they have no right to do this to me. So I'm going to just reopen. That's what I'm going to do. And he reopened at the beginning of May, and the state of Maine fined him $600 per day. That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. They were sending in health inspectors almost on a regular basis. And he even pointed out in a couple interviews that sometimes the health inspectors weren't even wearing the masks or abiding by their own protocol that they were trying to enforce and trying to catch them not doing. So I thought that was kind of funny. Then it came around to November 12th. The governor had just about had enough. So they started fining him $5,000 a day. And this was, of course, after the state put a mask mandate on the owner, Rick Savage, and his brother. They were the only two people in the entire state of Maine that had an individual mask mandate put on them. Wherever they went, they were followed. They were followed by the health department. They were followed by the police. Anybody they could get enforcing them and trying to catch them in the act of not obeying to protocol. So when Rick would show up to his business, as one does, he'd be wearing his mask. And if he'd had a drink, he wasn't able to pull his mask down. He had to just drink his drink through the mask. It was kind of comical. But after a while, he just stopped going down there in order to protect the business. He said, well, the spotlight's on me. I'm going to stay away from it. I'm not going to let what they have coming down on me affect my employees. They're just trying to make a living during all of this, and should be fine. So what they ended up doing is they found Rick in contempt of court for not closing. Because it was a court order to shut his doors because of COVID. He decided not to. They found him in contempt of court, and they were going to take him through the legal ringer. Now, on November 24th, they closed their doors for good. They were done. It is also very important to note at this time that between May 1st and November 24th of 2020, they had over 85,000 people through that door. 85,000. It's not like anything else was open. Small town in Maine, 85,000 people in and out through that door between May 1st and November 24th. And absolutely zero cases of COVID traced back to that location. They did the contact tracing. They did everything that they were supposed to do except close their doors. And no COVID. Crazy how that works, but they're out of business now. They're not there anymore. Lockdowns. The other place that I talked about was Mac's Public House on Staten Island, New York. Now, of course, this is coming down from the king of lockdowns, Governor Cuomo, and Mayor de Blasio. They shut down that whole city. They shut down every county, everything that they possibly could. And so with Mac's Public House, Mac decided to do something kind of interesting. So, over the summer, during the George Floyd protests, the city of Seattle decided that they wanted more of a spotlight than Minneapolis, so they decided to create the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, or CHAZ. CHAZ, as if you may have heard of it. Now, what CHAZ was, autonomous zone. So what they decided that they were not they they didn't have to adhere to the laws of the United States of America, that their zone existed outside of the bounds and laws of the United States of America, and they could do whatever they want. Pretty much picked a part of the city, planted their flag, and said, "This is mine now." And because of the reasoning and because of the protests and all of that going on, and of course, the mayor and the governor not backing the police department, which actually at the time had the first African American woman ever to have the position of the chief of police in Seattle. They wouldn't back her. Interesting. So that's why that lasted for so long. And so back to Mac's Public House, he reopened and then he designated his business as an autonomous zone. Took a page out of their book. Said, we don't have to shut down because we don't abide by the laws of New York State and New York City. We are autonomous. Well, that lasted for a little while. And because the first thing they did is they took away his liquor license. They took away his liquor license. It's a bar. It's a bar and restaurant. And they took away his liquor license because that's controlled by the state. They can do that. So they took away his liquor license. And for a while, he just stayed open, totally based on exchanging food for donations. It was free food. But, I mean, you were encouraged to donate. That's fine. What followed was that the owner was arrested multiple times for refusing to shut down. They tried to do a bunch of trumped up charges, like he struck a police officer, or he allegedly hit somebody with his car during, all the huge crowds that were outside of his business. There were always huge, large gatherings outside of his location. Fellow patriots out there taking a stand. Recently, within the last month, all charges against Mac's Public House were dropped. Was he allowed to reopen his business? No. Only under current guidelines in New York City, which is really not a lot. But all the charges were dropped. Him and his legal team, they won. So, score one for the good guys. But the mainstream media didn't cover that. No. They also, all those people that I told you about that were protesting outside of his bar, those patriots, they made fun of them on Saturday Night Live. Not surprising from Saturday Night Live, they become about as lowbrow and liberal as you can get. If it's not penis and poop jokes, it's all just incredibly liberal rhetoric. It used to be funny. All those patriots lived on Staten Island in New York City. New York City. All of those patriots. Are they holding out the last hope? Do they still have pride in their city? Yeah. Yeah, they do, because it's not the leadership of a city. It's the people within it. And my heart goes out to every patriot in New York City and everything that you have gone through within the last year. Now, I'm going to take a break here for a second and tell you that the government came out with a very piss poor way of helping out all the small businesses that were not surviving all these lockdowns. And so somebody stepped up, and that was Barstool Sports. He stepped up and he started his own fund. He takes donations regularly, and he gives 100% of them to small businesses that are struggling. So I'm going to put a link in the description of this video. And if you want to help small businesses that are struggling or having a very hard time getting through all of this, you can go ahead, click on that link, go to his page, see if you can help donate, see if you can help some of these small businesses. So, aside from that, I live in the state of Nevada, and my governor was pretty much just as bad as some of the others that are out there. Some of the Cuomos, some of the Whitmers, some of the Wolfs. And whenever anybody else got a little bit more of the spotlight than he did, he would come out with a new restriction or give a little speech or something like that. So just let us know he still had us right under the thumb where he wanted us. Now, in case you live under a rock, you should know that Las Vegas and Reno are tourist destinations. Las Vegas is the entertainment capital of the world. The city operates for 24 hours. World-class shows, dining, entertainment, everything. It is a vacation destination. Now, when he shut everything down on March 17th, 2020, the casinos had, I think, 2 days to close their doors. Interesting thing about these casinos, when they were built, Las Vegas was a 24/7 kind of city. And of course, if somebody wanted to gamble and throw away their money in your hotel, you weren't going to say no because it was 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. or whatever it may have been. If they wanted to spend their money, go on ahead. So yeah, it was 24/7. All these buildings were made without locks on the doors. They didn't have locks. They never had a reason to lock the doors. They were never locked. They were never closed. They never closed. After they shut everything down, after a couple of weeks in April, I drove down Las Vegas Boulevard and I looked, and you saw beautiful world-class resorts like the Venetian, like the Mirage, the Paris, so on and so forth. And they had plywood and chains boarding up their entrances because they didn't have the locks. They boarded them up. The entrances looked like condemned buildings because that's what they had to do. It was awful. It was absolutely awful. It was scary. It was like an episode of The Walking Dead where everything was just shut down and the city had died. It was really scary for me. I couldn't see it bouncing back. You just think to yourself, how can you come back from this? How? How is it even possible? Slowly but surely, it is coming back up. Now, a lot of the casinos for a while were only open on the weekends. They couldn't afford to be open all week because they weren't getting enough business to make up for operating costs. But they could on the weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So they were only open during those times, and even then, they would only have a few floors open. Like, oh, you can only stay on the first four floors of the Bellagio. It was sad. It's bounced back a bit. When they reopened, they were only allowed to operate at 25% of their capacity, and 25% of the room capacity, too. It's since bumped up to 35%, and there's talk of it going up to 50%. Las Vegas was a very scary place during the lockdowns, and now that starting to come out of it, you're starting to see that not all the businesses are there. My favorite buffet on the Strip wasn't that big into the buffets, but this one got high enough reviews I had to try it out. The Wicked Spoon at the Cosmopolitan. So good. So good. They didn't make it. And they shut their doors for good at the beginning of January, end of December. The best food that I have had in Las Vegas, and I've eaten at a lot of the nicer restaurants on the Strip. You know, every now and then I have a special occasion to celebrate, and me and the wife will go out, and it'll be a good time. But some of the best food that we ever had was at Bobby Flay's Mesa Grill inside Caesar's Palace. And they had been there for years and years. I want to say 20. They didn't make it. They're gone. It'll be replaced by something else. So, what have we seen as a result of these lockdowns over the last year? The hospitality and entertainment industry is basically non existent. People are moving out of California. In droves. They're going to Texas. They're coming to Las Vegas. They're over there and they're used to spending between $600,000 and $800,000 for a house. And they come over to Las Vegas, and that $300,000 house that they're trying to sell for $400,000 looks like a deal to them. So the cost of living and the housing market in Vegas has skyrocketed and profited a whole lot off of these Californians moving in. I mean, they don't have anywhere to work once they get here, but at least the houses are cheaper. In amongst everything, when the casinos reopened and they couldn't get any business because of travel restrictions and people afraid to travel, they lowered their room rates. They lowered their room rates really low. They were already low to begin with. The airlines and the casinos, the casinos and the resort companies paid the airlines to keep those tickets down. It's always cheaper to come to Vegas than to fly away from it. And so, like, those rooms that were about $60 a night in a 4 or 5 star casino were now down to 30. When that didn't work, they lowered it to 20. And when that didn't work, a lot of the casinos lowered it to 0. Why be open? Well, in Las Vegas, you have what's called a resort fee. A resort fee is something you pay up front, covers all operating costs, and so if your room rate's 0, all you got to pay is a resort fee. These low room rates attracted some pretty undesirable people. A lot of criminals, a lot of people who were used to just sitting around collecting their government government aid, their welfare checks, and their food stamps, and then all of a sudden had stimulus checks on top of them. And so they're like, you know what? This sucks. I'm just going to go to Vegas. It's cheap. They come here, and there were shootings on the strip, broad daylight. And the violence has continued. It was pretty bad. It's gotten a little bit better within the past couple of months, but still, you can only beef up security so much. You're just kind of hurting yourself at this point. You're allowed more people? Well, put those rates back up. Put them back up to $30 a night. Why not? So, your government takes away your livelihood from you. You have the right to a living. And it's outlined that every American is entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, what that outlines for me is you have the right and the ability to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and make something of yourself as an American, to contribute to our economy, to provide for your family, to go from rags to riches. Only in America. That is what you have. So who are they to take that away from you? One of the things that they were toying around with at the beginning of the year was locking everything back down again. There was a lot of talk about it when Biden was inaugurated. Not going to say elected, but he was inaugurated. And there was a lot of talk about the lockdowns again. And Dan Crenshaw, representative of Texas, veteran, hero. He is quoted as saying, if lockdowns worked the first time, then why are we doing again? Why are we doing them again? If lockdowns didn't work the first time around, then why would we do them again? It's the definition of insanity. If it didn't work, why would you do it? It's not going to work still. If it did work, then you wouldn't have to do it again. I loved that. That quote went viral. It's still kind of hopping around there on the airwaves, and I love it every time I see it, because anytime you get a little bit of logic and reason through the rhetoric and the narrative is a good thing. So, with all the lockdowns, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to move? Are you going to give in to their laws? Or are you just go, okay, I'm just going to stay put. I'm not going to work. I'm not going to open up my business. You're right. It's for the greater good. Or are you going to fight for your livelihood? How can you fight for your livelihood? Well, actually peacefully protest. Peacefully. Sure. But another way that you can hurt them is at the ballot box. Remember what they did. We have another year, and it's going to be an election year. 2022. Time to make some changes. Remember what your governors did. If they're up for re-election, did you lose your business? Did your buddy lose theirs? Remember it. Hurt them where it hurts them the most, in the ballot box. The whole lockdown thing really got me thinking. And it's just about, what is it? They are taking away your liberty. They are taking away your livelihood. They are taking away your very right to liberty. They tried that before. The British tried that. The British tried that with taxation without representation back in revolutionary times, and it got me thinking about Patrick Henry, one of the original Patriots. And he gave a speech, and that speech has been immortalized and etched in marble. It is on memorials, it is on statues. It is everywhere you see American history. It has been, the key phrase has been put on flags, banners. It's been the motto of states, cities. It's the American motto, pretty much. So this is his speech in whole. Now, as I read it to you, I want you to think about the parallels as to what he and the colonists were going through with the British and what was going on in our country during 2020. Here it is. The question before the House is one of awful moment to this country. For my own part, I consider it as nothing less than a question of freedom or slavery. Should I keep back my opinions at such time through fear of giving offense? Should I consider myself as guilty of treason toward my country? Mr. President, it is natural to man to indulge in the illusions of hope. But is this the part of wise men engaged in a great struggle for liberty? Are we disposed to be of the number of those who, having eyes, see not, and having ears, hear not? The things which so nearly concern their salvation. For my part, whatever anguish of spirit it may cost, I am willing to know the whole truth, to know the worst, and to provide for it. Truth over feelings, people. See the logic in front of you. Hear the logic in front of you. I know of no way of judging of the future but by the past. And judging by the past, I wish I know what there has been in the conduct of the British ministry for the last 10 years to justify those hopes with which gentlemen have been pleased to comfort themselves and the House. Is it that insidious smile with which our petition has been lately received? Trust it not, sir. Suffer not yourselves to be betrayed with a kiss. Ask yourselves, are fleets and armies necessaries to a work of love and reconciliation? Let us not deceive ourselves, sir. These are the implements of war and subjugation, the last arguments to which kings resort. I ask, gentlemen, sir, has Great Britain any enemy in this quarter of the world to call for all of this accumulation of navies and armies? No, sir. She has none. They're meant for us. They can be meant for no other. And what have we to oppose them? They turn their own military on their own citizens. There was no reason for them to be there except for the uprising of their own citizens. And rather than actually listen to them, they just decided to control them. And the part with suffer not yourselves to be betrayed with a kiss. It's referring to King George giving in a little bit, giving the colonists just a little bit, just to help them out. And that I kind of see as like a stimulus check. I'm sorry, but $1,200 does not compensate for $40,000 a year lost, or even more. It's but a kiss. And I'm American. I want the whole thing. Shall we try arguments, sir? We have been trying that for the last 10 years, sir. We have done nothing that could be done to avert the storm which is now coming on. We have petitioned. We have remonstrated. We have supplicated. We have prostrated ourselves before the throne and have implored its interposition to arrest the tyrannical hands of Parliament. Our petitions have been slighted. Our remonstrances have produced additional violence and insult. Our supplications have been disregarded, and we have been spurned with contempt from the foot of the throne in vain. After these things, may we indulge the fond hope of peace and reconciliation. After that, there is no longer any room for hope. If we wish to be free, we must fight. I repeat, sir, we must fight. An appeal to arms and the God of hosts is all that is left us. It is in vain, sir, to extenuate the matter. The war is actually begun. Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here idle? Is life so dear, or peace so sweet, as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others may take. But as for me, give me liberty or give me death. Thank you very much to all of our first responders, law enforcement, active military, as well as all of our veterans. Thank you all, you Patriots, for watching. We'll see you next time.